All right, shalom, 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 shalom. First and foremost, I like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rachak Badash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations be unto the Akim out here pushing this gospel in truth and in sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. Amen. We're out here through the grace and mercy of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and His only beloved begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, to continue to push this gospel, this good news, this truth, man. Right? And it is of a truth, man, that this current society is being brought down. Yahweh Bashem Shai is bringing Esau Edom's rulership, right, to an end. Let me grab this part. We'll grab some precepts. All right, this place is going down, man. Esau Edom is losing, you know. Let me grab this first, man, before we go in. This is Job chapter 14 and verse 5. It says, seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. Meaning that Yahweh Bashem Shai, right, has ultimately given this man, a certain amount of time, right, to be able to rule, and build up his kingdom, and do what he do. Right. And see, because as you read in Daniel's the second chapter, right, the 21st verse, where in fact we'll grab that as well. Right. Daniel 2 and 21, it says, and he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. The point being in the first half of that verse, right, he removeth kings and setteth up kings. Right. Well, Yahweh Shemel Shai set this devil up. Right. Right, the Lord's put this devil in power, right, but for a certain amount of time. He didn't put Esau in power to rule forever. That's not how that works, right? Yahweh Shemel Shai made a promise, right? To King David, right, through Nathan the prophet, right, that made a promise, right, that King David's son, right, would rule. His kingdom would be established forever. Now, King Solomon, right, who's King David's son. His rulership only lasted 40 years, right? So who was that talking about, right? That's talking about Yahweh Shai, right? King Solomon, right, was Yahweh Shai in the reincarnation. And that's who that promise was made to, right? That Yahweh Shai, right, would ultimately rule. His kingdom would be established forever and he would rule forever, right? Which is what's coming, right? When Yahweh Shai comes, right, he's going to do what? 1 Corinthians 15, verse 24. He's going to cast down all rule, power, and authority, roughly paraphrasing, right? And what? All the nations are going to be put under him, right? Everything will be put under Yahweh Shai, man, and under the elect, those who are made heirs with the promise, heirs to the promise with him, that's what's coming. That's who was promised an everlasting rulership, not Esau Edom, right? And again, we're seeing right now that this devil, his rulership is coming to an end. This is why he's moving so fast, trying to, ultimately keep himself in power. Well, let's go to this, Revelations 12 and 12, right? It says therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe unto the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. See, Esau Edom, right, sees the prophets, right? Esau Edom has seen the prophets be, risen up and to speak this word, to speak this truth. Starting with our elder apostles of Great Millstone on down, right? Those are the true prophets, right, of Yahweh Bashem Shai. And see, when Yahweh Bashem Shai rose up those men, see, Esau Edom, right, sees that. And he knows that when the prophets get risen up, right, that ultimately means that that's the end of that current rulership, right? You read that in Jeremiah 28 and 8, right? Let's grab that as well. Jeremiah 28 and verse 8, it says, the prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms, of war and of evil and of pestilence. And see, we're literally speaking those same things. We're warning you, right, of the downfall of this great kingdom, right? This place of commerce, right? This great place of commerce, which is called America, right? Also known in the scriptures as Babylon the Great, right? We're warning you that this place is going to be brought down. We're warning you that America in this war to come, right? The Third World War, which we're in right now, right? It's only going to continue to get worse. America is going to be on the receiving end of all of that, all those ICBM nuclear missiles that are being created by these nations, right? Because we understand that America is the epicenter of wickedness, in the earth, right? Esau has used America, right, to forward his agenda, right? To push his philosophy and lifestyle and to, establish his power, right, in the earth. He's used America to do so, right? So by default, right, as we see America going down, we see this devil going down. Esau, you're not going to last. You're not going to rule forever. We understand that that's what your idea is. That's what you're trying to do, trying to establish a new world order, a one world government, a one world currency, right? A one world religion, right? And you being the head of all of that, right? We understand that that's what you're trying to do, but we understand that Yahweh Bashem El Shah has never allowed, right, a heathen nation, right, to establish their own world government, right, to control the entire world, not the known world at that time, right? But we're talking about the entire world. It's not going to happen, right? We understand that Esau Edom has, deceived, right, the people to believe that he is some kind of, holy person, but he's not. He's the wicked, right? And he's going to try to, again, establish, that wicked rulership, right, and try to make it last forever. That's not going to happen. We had seen, right, this same playbook right before, right? Ecclesiastes 1:9, right? There's no that which had been is that which shall be. There's nothing new under the sun. This has been tried before, right? Going into Daniel's, right, the 3rd chapter, right? This is Daniel's 3:1. It says Nebuchadnezzar the king had made an image of gold, whose height was 3 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains and the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the province to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the province were gathered together under the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then an herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages." So we're talking about everybody, right? So he wanted everyone to bow down to him, his image, his system, right? And this again, we see the same thing being set up, right? Because Esau is basically doing the same thing, right? But through this technology, right? He wants everyone to basically receive this rice grain in their hands, right? Whether it be a left or right hand. He wants everyone to receive some kind of brain hip, so that way he can what? He can control you, right? He can, can track where you are, right? He wants that full control. And this is exactly what Nebuchadnezzar wanted, right? He wants full control over the masses, over the people, But see, just as we see, right, that Yahweh Bashem El Shah brought down the ancient Babylonian empire, the Neo-Babylonian Empire. And well, guess what? Yahweh Bashem El Shah is going to bring down this modern-day Babylonian Empire, which we see it happening and taking place right now, right? America is losing, right? You can start really back in 2024. Really, you can go back a few years, but 2024, was a major event had happened, right? Which is what? Saudi Arabia exiting, right? That deal, that 50-year deal, right? Which was established in 1973, 1974. That for Saudi Arabia to trade and sell oil in American dollars, which gave the American dollar, right, a lot of power, right? But in 2024, they didn't want to enter, basically renew that deal, right? Now, fast forward to now, which again, that hurt the American dollar, right? Because now Saudi Arabia can now trade and sell oil in different currencies, right? But fast forwarding to now, right, you have a lot of these countries, right, that basically have, and own a lot of America's debt, such as China, Japan, right? Japan being the major, the major country that holds the most debt, American dollars, American treasury bonds. Now these countries are selling off those treasury bonds, right? And we're getting all that money, those US dollars, and transferring them into their own currency, strengthening their own currency, their own economy, and basically again, further devaluing, right, the US dollar, which is hurting the American economy. That right there, again, that right there shows you America's losing its power. Esau is losing his power. You got more and more, because right now you even made, like, Trump even made a statement that they're going to, they're not going to be there for NATO because NATO wasn't there for them, right? Which shows you, hey, Daniel's second chapter, the feet of iron and clay, right? Not being mixed together, Matter of fact, let's grab that. Daniel's 2, I think it's 41, if I'm not mistaken. Right here, it says, right here, Daniel's 2 and verse 40, it says, "In the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise." Right? It says, "And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with the miry clay." Right? Because again, America, right, has been again in rulership for so long, and again, right, America has been, that I guess that rod for all these nations to lean upon to get rich, right? That staff for all these nations to lean upon, right, to ultimately get rich and get money and so on and so forth, right? And again, a lot of these nations, right, the NATO nations, EU nations, they've leaned upon America, right, for that protection, right? That military protection, that military might, right? But see, that right there is going away, right? It says, verse 42, "And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken." Again, you got some of these nations, right, within the EU, or sorry, within NATO, right? Some of them are strong nations, right? Some of them are weak nations, right? Smaller nations, right? They need that big brother, if you will, to help protect them and so on and so forth, right? It says, verse 43, "And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay." Right? You're seeing that separation, man. Iron and clay do not mix. You take a rock and you try to basically throw water on it, the water's gonna, slide right off. Or you take a rock and you try to basically, mud, and you try to create something. Hey, when that water starts coming down, hey, guess what? That rock is gonna be separated from that mud, man. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing that separation, happening right now, right? And this is a very heavy point too. It says, "And in that day," verse 44, right? "And in that day, and in the days of these kings, shall the power of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed," right? "And the kingdom shall not be left to another people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever." And again, that's talking about, right, the kingdom of Yahweh Shai, right? The kingdom of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right? Where Yahweh Shai is going to ultimately rule, right? Because that's what's coming, right? Again, Esau thinks and believes that he's going to be able to set up, his rulership forever. But see, that's not the case, man. Right? Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai is making it more evident now that the Lord's fighting to bring this devil down completely. Right? His power and strength among these nations is depleting. Right? The dollar, right, is being de-dollarized or devalued, if you will. Right? His influence over these nations and his power over these nations, right, is waning. These nations don't want to do deals with him. Canada's sitting here about to put a 50% or just enacted a 50% tariff on America. Because of that tariff that Trump put on Canada, right? Retaliatory tariffs, if you will, man, which is gonna fuck up the economy, man. It's gonna, and prices are gonna be out the roof. here for the, the average American consumer. It's gonna get bad out here, man. You know, everybody's seeing America all these nations are seeing America for the bully that it's been for years. For years, they're done with America, man. So we're at the point where the Lord Yahweh Shem Shah is about to bring this place down completely. Internally, starting internally, and then finishing it off externally when Yahweh Shai comes, right? Let's go to that. Because that's what's coming, right? Yahweh Shai is finna come and cast down this devil and his rulership, man. It's 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 24. It says, then cometh the end. The end of what? The end of Esau Edom's rulership, which is something that we were looking for, right? You go back into 2nd Ezra, 6th chapter, right? You start at verse 7, right? Ezra, right? Inquire, right? How are we going to know? Like, how are we going to know, right? That this place is ending in the beginning of it that followeth is coming, right? How do we know that, right? Looking for those signs, right? Just as our forefathers were, right? Looking for these different signs, just as we are today, right? It says, then come at the end, when he shall have delivered up the kingdom to the Most High, even the Father, when he shall have put down all rule and all authority and power. And who is in power, right? Who has rulership, right? Who has control over everything that we see here right now? It's Esau Edom, the self-proclaimed so-called white man. You go back into, what is that? Job 9 and 24, right? It says, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof, if not where. And who is he, man? And we constantly break this down, man. The wicked, right? You read in Malachi 1 and 4, right? Is Esau Edom, the border of wickedness, man, right? And he has rulership, right? Well, who owns all these different major corporations? Who owns all these central banks? Who owns, and runs the world behind the scenes, right? On the scene and behind the scenes, the so-called white man. He's the one that rules everything as of right now, man. He's the wicked that the Bible speaks of, man. And he's done nothing but rule in wickedness. Right? What does it say in Revelations? Revelations, the 6th chapter, the 4th verse. It says, and there went out another horse that was red, right? Esau Edom is that red horse, right? And power was given him to sit thereon, to take peace from the earth. Right? Look at everything this devil has done, man. He's taking nothing but peace from the earth. Nothing but peace from the earth. Again, I go back to, the research I had done when it comes to, these animals being extinct, right? We're talking about since America's inception, right? Over 100 different species here in America, right, have ultimately gone extinct, right? That's just here in America, right? Well, how much more, abroad as well? You got something called Trash Island. It's basically a floating island that goes through, out, I think it's the Pacific, if I'm not mistaken, and it's nothing but trash. Literally nothing but trash. You got animals that get caught up in it, right? Turtles, so on and so forth. They get caught up in it. Sea lions, they get caught up in it and they ultimately perish. They die because of that. So he's fucking up the ecosystem. What was it? The Yellowstone Park, if I'm not mistaken, he took out all the wolves and it just destroyed the ecosystem. They had to put them back. Esau is created, right, from the head to the toe and back up to be the wicked, right? Revelation 6 and 4 says, and there went another horse that was red, and power was given him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. And Esau's been using that sword, man. Esau has done nothing but, the so-called white man has done nothing but rule in wickedness. He has done nothing to benefit anybody, in the world, to actually benefit them. The scriptures talk about that if he do good, he do it not of his own, man. Esau's always trying to get one over on somebody, man. If he does good, if he does something good to you, tells you that it's good, you best believe that he's lying to you, right? Because he's a liar. He's a deceiver. Scriptures talk about, right, when he was coming out of that, that Renaissance, right, that he was what to do, what to deceive the whole world. Lie to the whole world about who he is and what he has done. But see, it's all coming out, man. All this information is coming out. The so-called white man has done nothing but lie his way, into you people believing, right, that he's some kind of good person, but he's not. What's going on? You can stand over there though. I'm doing a video right here.
Have you in it?
No.
Can you bless me?
What do you want me to bless you? I'm not gonna bless you. Only the Lord can bless you.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Only the Lord. Who's the Lord?
The Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and His only beloved begotten Son, Yahweh Shai.
You met him before?
Right there on the sign. If you want to see what he looks like.
You met him? That's what he looks like?
Yeah. Bible. You believe in the Bible?
When did you meet him?
Did you believe in the Bible?
Nope.
You don't believe in the Bible?
Nope.
Okay, well, we preach the Bible over here.
Why?
What are you doing? Are you pouring water on?
I'm trying to clear the evilness off my stuff. And no, I don't believe in God.
You don't believe in God.
I wasn't there. I never.
Hey, well, let's read this. Let's read this.
I don't know why you guys get
right?
crazy on it.
Psalms 14. I think it's Psalms 10. Scriptures say that a fool hath said in his heart that there is no God. You know? Right here. This is... Let's grab it. Yeah, because there is a God, right? Right here, Psalms 14:1 says to the chief musician, a psalm of David, the fool hath said in his heart, meaning your mind, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. Right? So you saying that there is no God, that's foolish talk. Right? There is a God. Who do you think created, right, the earth? Who do you think created the air that you breathe? The lungs to be able to receive that. The process of the lungs being able to break down oxygen. Right? You see, is that your God right there? Jesus Christ? Is that your God? You believe in Jesus Christ?
No, I am Jesus.
You are Jesus. Yeah. That's bugged out. Yeah. Anyways, you could be him because he ain't did nothing for our people. This is Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, and he's coming back. And that's what we're talking about. He's coming back to do away with all the wicked, right? The abomination, the abominable of our people. Well, what are you? Are you Mexican? Are you black?
Yeah, Mexican, black, and native.
Mexican, black, and native. Well, and guess what? The so-called Mexicans, blacks, and Native Americans are the Israelites, the true chosen nation, right, of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and His only beloved begotten Son, Yahweh Shai. We're a blessed nation above all nations upon the earth. And you sitting here doing drugs, I can tell you on drugs, right? You doing drugs. Yeah. Well, you doing drugs, and that shit's meant to kill you.
They make me smarter.
See, this is the mindset of our people, man. Right? They trust in this devil in the vices that he gives them, right? And it destroys them, right? It destroys our mindset, man. Right? But see, that's okay, right? You want to continue right on that path. You want to continue to walk on that path. Even when Yahweh Shai comes, right? And again, removes this devil out of power. It will all you Israelites, right? You so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, all you Israelites that wanted to see this place continue, and well, guess what? You're gonna perish right along with it. You know? They'll join hand in hand. The wicked shall not go unpunished, man. The Lord's going to destroy this place and the wicked people that are here with it, man. You know, that's just how it goes, man. Yahweh Shem Shai playing with nobody. You know, he's coming to remove all the wickedness, right? Let's go back to that, right? In 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter and verse 24, right? It says, then cometh the end of what? The end of this current rulership, man, right? It says, when he shall have delivered up the kingdom to the Most High, even the Father, when he shall have put down all rule and all authority and power. And again, we were going into how Esau, Edom, he's the one that has rule, power, and authority, right? And he's done nothing but rule in wickedness, to take peace from the earth, right? To give our people drugs, right? To give our people, alcohol, which is poison, These are different vices, right? That were given unto us, right? So that way he can sit there and put us in these positions as being druggies and criminals and so on and so forth. So he can accuse us, right, to our power and say, look, they're doing wickedly. They're doing evil. They're doing wickedness, right? To try to take the eyes of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shem Shai, off of him and onto us. When in reality, he's the wicked one, man. Right? Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, says, woe to him that giveth his neighbor drink and looketh upon his nakedness. Roughly paraphrase. Right? To sit there and give us alcohol, right? And to give us drugs, right? And then point us out to be the ones that are bad, the ones that are evil. We're not evil people. Again, we are the true chosen nation, not those small hats that are over there in the land of Israel. Those are imposters. Those are devils. You know, the thieves, deceivers. Again, right? Going back to him, you know, when he coming out of that Renaissance, right? To deceive the whole world. And he did just that, you know, to make you think that he was doing anything good for you. He did nothing for you. You know, scriptures talk about the Egyptians, you know, his strength is to sit still. Meaning, it's like, bro, don't even try to help me. I don't want your help because all you're gonna do is fuck me up. And this is what happened, you know, to our people getting fucked up, man. But that's okay. Yahweh Shemel Shai is going to undo all this shit, man. You know, we're no longer going to be at these, you know, these states in which we're in now, right? We're no longer going to be fucked up mentally, physically, emotionally, you know. Yahweh Shai coming to do away with all of that, right? I'll keep going. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 25 says, for he must reign till he hath put all enemies under his feet. Right. All enemies, all these heathens, all these people, right, that continue to rule over us. Again, going back, even the heathen nations, right? Esau, Edom, right? The so-called white man, the so-called African, the so-called Chinese, right? The so-called Middle Eastern, the so-called Muslims, you know, the Arabs, right? All these heathen nations have had us in captivity at one point or another. But see, that's going to be done away with, man. You know, we're going to be put on top. We're going to rule under Yahweh Shai, because the scriptures tell you in Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah 9 and 6, it says, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty Power, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Right? And we don't have no peace here, man. We don't got no peace, right? We're not able to, you know, rest. You know, we're not able to rest. We, you know, while people are fucked up, right? We're constantly subject to payments, constantly put in a bad state, you know, but all that's going to be done away with, man. You know, it says, it's right here, verse 7, of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order and establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of Yahweh of hosts will perform this. That's right. You know, an everlasting kingdom, an everlasting rulership, a righteous rulership, right? When we go back into it in, what is that? 2 Peter 3 and verse 11, it says, seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, right? Because again, America is gonna perish via ICBM nuclear missiles, man. Can you go back over there, please? Can you go back over there? Thank you. Right, America is going to be destroyed via ICBM nuclear missiles. Right? It says, seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of person ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness? Right? Right? Where's your mindset at, man? What are you thinking about? What are you doing? What do you value? You know? Resist the devil and he shall flee from you, man. Damn, woman was over here bugged the fuck out, tweaking, pouring water on her clothes, talking about getting rid of the demons. Man, but the Lord gave our people up to strong delusions, man. You know, strong delusions. But nonetheless, right? Verse 12, it says, looking for and hasting unto the coming of the day of the Most High, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Right? We're looking for this day to happen. Right? We're looking for Yahweh Shai's coming. Right? For America to be destroyed. Right? Verse 13, nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. So when Yahweh Shai comes, he's going to undo this system which is established in wickedness, and he's going to establish a system, right, built upon righteousness, which is the scriptures. Right? The words of Yahweh Shemel Shai, right, are instructions in righteousness, as the scriptures say. You know? So when he comes, he's going to establish the scriptures as being the standard way of life, the standard of living. That's what's going to be forwarded. That's what's going to be established. You know, it's not going to be a wicked rulership. Yahweh Shai is going to rule forever in righteousness. right? And we're going to be set up, right? We're going to be ruling, right? We're no longer going to be on bottom, right? We're no longer going to be, in this state in which you see our people in now. That shit's going to be done and over with, man. Esau, you're not going to rule forever. We understand that when you ultimately go to establish your NWO, right? When you fully get there, when you get to that point where you're about to fully finish, hey, the Lord said what? That he's gonna rain his fury upon you while you're eating. Right? Before you can clean off that plate, hey, the Lord gonna snatch that plate from you and smack you with that plate. You know? You gonna get hit hard, man. You gonna get hit so hard you fall about that chair. You know? Then Yahushua gonna dust and clean it off, and he gonna sit in that chair, man. And he'll never be moved out that chair, and you're gonna be exactly where you're supposed to be, on the bottom, on the floor, man. With your face down, palms up, praying and pleading and asking for forgiveness, but you ain't gonna get none, right? Because when Yahushua comes, guess what? You heathens are gonna be put into captivity, into subjection, right? Let's go into that, right? Psalms 149. Because again, we read, right, in 1 Corinthians 15 chapter, right? He's gonna reign till he put all people under him. Matter of fact, let's go and we'll read that. I don't want to butcher it. Right? 1 Corinthians 15, verse 25. Right? Again, it says, for he must reign till he has put all enemies under his feet. Right? Meaning you're gonna be, in which again, all you heathen nations, right, are really truly enemies to the Lord. Right? Because you're what? You're doing what? You're operating contrary to Yahweh Shemel Shai in the state in which you were created to operate in. Being servants, right? Being servitude, right, to the Israelites. Right? So again, you're operating contrary to your ultimate, reason of creation, right? This is Psalm 149 and verse 5. It says, let the saints be joyful in glory, let them sing aloud upon their beds. And the saints are the Israelites. Psalms 148, verse 14 tells you what? He also exalted the horn of his people, the praise of all his saints, even of the children of Israel. A people near unto him praise ye Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. So the saints are the Israelites, right? I'll read it again. Psalms 149, verse 5. Let the saints, let the Israelites be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds, right? Let the high praises of the Most High be in their mouth and a two-edged sword in their hand. And in the kingdom, we will literally have a two-edged sword in our hands to rule over these nations, man, with a rod of iron, man, being very strict, right? It says what? It says, verse 7, to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron, to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints praise ye, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. So this is what we're going to do. Right, we're going to put you when Yahushua comes. Right, there's going to be a gathering. Right, Matthew's 24th chapter. Right, tells you the verse 31 that he's going to send the angels. Right, to gather the elect from the four corners of the earth. Right, the elect of the nation of Israel, those who are trying their best. Right, to serve Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua in these times. Right, repenting, returning to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua before the judgment. Spring forth. Right? This is what's ultimately going to happen. This is what's going to take place, man. It's prophesied to happen and take place. And just as we, starting with the elder apostles of Great Millstone on down, just as we told you that these earthquakes were going to increase, just as we told you that, that the uproars of the people were going to happen, just as we told you that America and the NATO and the EU, the American allies were ultimately going to split. And now it's happening. And well, guess what? We're telling you this is going to happen, and best believe it's going to happen. Right? Because as the Lord says, his word did not return unto him void. Meaning that when the Lord ultimately has his prophet speak a word, his true prophet speak a word, and you best believe that's what happens. That's what comes to pass. Because as the scriptures also say, it's not you that speaketh, but your Father will speak it, through you. Right? Roughly paraphrasing. So it's Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua that's speaking these things, man. Right? We're just that vessel, that mouthpiece, that the Lord uses to say these things, man. But this is written, right? To execute upon them the judgment written. Right, so you heathens are going into captivity, right? Going back to that analogy, right? When Esau's sitting there eating, right? He getting to the last couple spoonfuls or, last couple fork jabs of, whatever he's eating. And the Lord going to grab that plate, snatch it from him, hit him with that damn plate, and he going to fall off the chair and hit the ground, man. And he going to stay there, right? On elbows and knees, man. Serving like he was meant to. That's what's coming, man. You heathens are going right into captivity, man. Being slaves, right? As it says right here in Revelations 13, and we'll start at verse 9. It says, what? If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. See, again, going back to the saints, the Israelites, man. We're patiently waiting for this, man. This devil has ruled, right, for a long period of time, man. A few hundred years Esau's been ruling, and we've been at the bottom. We've been at the bottom. We've been treated like shit. Right? You see that, our people are just bugged out, man. Our people are bugged the fuck out, doing drugs, day drinking, all this extra shit, being, not being sober, but being, drunk, with wine and without wine, spiritually drunk, physically drunk. Our people are fucked up out here, man. And this is the doing of Esau, Edom, But see, again, all that's going to be done away with, man. This devil's going to be taken out of power, right? And all that wickedness that he's been forwarding in the earth, that shit's going to come to a screeching halt, man, when Yahweh Shai comes. Right? We're no longer going to be in this state, man. We're going to have joy forever, We're going to actually be able to live, right? We're actually going to be able to have, some type of rest when Yahweh Shai, gets established, right? As being, the King of Kings forever. You devils are going into captivity, man. It's going to be amazing for us, man. You're going to serve us. We're no longer going to be fucking serves, no longer serving, right? But we're going to be served. I remember I went into a restaurant here. I want to say yesterday or the day before. And no, it was 2 days ago, Friday night. And went into a restaurant, man, and it was all Edomites. And they looked at me and my wife, man, and looked at us like we weren't supposed to fucking be there. And when I'm saying there was one dude, he was just, man, staring at me like it was a crime that I was there. Like he's, like we're not supposed to be there. But see, the scriptures say that all things were made for the elect's sake, right? Everything. The elect of the nation of Israel. So really, you in a place where you're not supposed to be at, man. But see, I can't do anything about it because I'm in captivity. Esau is in his heaven, right? He's in his heaven. I'm in captivity, right? But we're starting to see that our captivity is being undone right before our eyes. We read that in what is that? Zephaniah. It's like Zechariah 13, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Zephaniah 3. And actually, no, I'll start at verse 18. Right? It says Zephaniah 3. I'll start at verse 14. It says, sing, O daughter of Zion, shout, O Israel. Be glad and rejoice with all the heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, hath taken away thy judgments. He hath cast out thine enemy. The King of Israel, even Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, is in the midst of thee. Thou shalt not see evil anymore. Right? That's what's coming for us, man. Right? All this evil is going to be done away with. Right? It says, in that day it shall be said to Jerusalem, that fear thou not, and to Zion, let not thine hands be slack. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, thy power in the midst of thee is mighty. He will save. He will rejoice over thee with joy. He will rest in his love. He will joy over thee with singing. I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly. Right? And we are in a sorrowful state, man. Right? It says, who are of thee, to whom the reproach of it was a burden. This is a burden, you know? This is straight up fucking burden to be under this devil, and be in captivity, man. You know, we can't do shit. You know? It says, behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that halteth, and gather her that was driven out, and I will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. And we have been put to shame, man. You know, we're looked at as basically the scum of the earth, right? A nation that, you know, as the scriptures say, "Oh nation not desire," right? Gather ye together, "Oh nation not desire," right? We're looked at as nothing as a people, man. You know, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. You know, you look at our people, man. Look at the mindset that they're in. You know, it says, and here's the point, verse 20. It says, and at that time I will bring you again, even in the time that I gather you, for I will make you a name and a praise among all the people of the earth, when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, saith Yahweh Hashem Shai. Our captivity, right, is being turned back before our eyes, man. Yahweh Hashem Shai is giving us mercy, right? Allowing us to be, you know, spiritually free, right? There's two parts to our freedom, man. First being, you know, spiritually, you know, made free, right? Yahweh Shai said, you shall know the truth, and truth shall make you free, right? And then what? Physically free, you know? Where you know, when Yahweh Shai comes, he's going to deliver the elect of the nation of Israel, right? And we're going to be put on top, right? Under Yahweh Shai, again, being heirs to the promise with Yahweh Shai. Lord, will we be of that number? You know? No longer being on bottom, no longer being, you know, no longer serving, right? But being served. That's a blessing, and that's what's coming for us, man. Lord will. You know, and guess what? Guess who's gonna serve us? You fucking heathens, man. You know? You gonna serve us, man. Let me grab this. And I got a few more minutes, man. Phone's already starting to, you know, overheat, man. And well, let's grab this. This is Isaiah 60. Phone's dying pretty quick too. Let's go. This is Isaiah 60, and we'll start at verse 9. Right? It says, "Surely the isles shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them, unto the name of Yahweh thy power, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee." Right? Meaning that there, you know, we're going to be brought back into our own land and see all that gold, that silver, right, that was taken away from us, right? All that's going to be given back. You know, I think it states that in Job, the 12th chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Job 12. It says, is it Job 12? Could be Job. Thought it was Job. Right here, Slakia. Job 20 and verse 15. It says, he hath swallowed down riches, and he shall vomit them up again. The Most High shall cast them out of his belly. He shall suck the poison of asps. The viper's tongue shall slay him. He shall not see rivers, the floods, the brooks of honey and butter. That which he labored for shall he restore, and shall not swallow it down. According to his substance shall the restitution be, and he shall not rejoice therein. So everything that he stole, everything that he took, he gonna have to give it back. You know, when he's brought into captivity, you best believe he giving all that shit back. Right? Going back to Isaiah 60 verse 10, it says, and the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their king shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. Right? Therefore thy gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought. So there you go. Right? And that's talking about what? The forces of Gentiles is going into all the substance, right? The true money, the true wealth, right? The different fabrics and animals and incense and spices and so on and so forth. You're going to have to bring all that shit to us, man. The gemstones, right? Because scriptures tell you in Revelation 21st chapter that the foundations of the kingdom are going to be built with precious stones, you know? And you devils are going to build it how we want it to be built, you know? We're gonna be, hey, I want my bed over there. No, 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 I want my bed over here. Matter of fact, put it back over there. Nah, nah, actually put it over here. We're gonna make y'all motherfuckers do what the fuck we want you to do. And if you don't, you gonna perish, right? We'll keep reading. Right? Verse 12, it says, for the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. Yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted. So as soon as you don't do what we want you to do, right? Even on an individual level, right? Individual, person. You do what you do. You don't do what we want you to do. You're going to be put to death. And obviously we're going to, it might not just be, you just instantly put to death when you do something wrong. We might punish you, man. We're going to punish you first. We're going to have fun with it. Sometimes just, killing somebody, right? It doesn't, it's going to sound sadistic, man, but that's, in the kingdom, we're going to be able to do this, right? Instead of just sitting here killing you, hey, we're going to torture your ass, man. Just as you have fun torturing us, we're going to have fun torturing you, We'll continue on. It says, the glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box together to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious. The sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee, and all they that despise thee shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet. And they shall call thee the city of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, the Zion of the Holy One of Israel. Right? And when you go back to that word Zion, it goes back to the Hebrew word to Zion one, which means monument, right? A standard. People are going to look at us in awe, right? They're going back to that praise and that fame, right? We read in Zephaniah, the 3rd chapter. It says, whereas thou hast been forsaken and hated, so that no man went through thee, I will make thee an eternal excellency, a joy of many generations. Thou shalt also suck the milk of the Gentiles, and shalt suck the breast of kings, and thou shalt know that I, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, am thy Savior, and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. For brass I will bring gold, and for iron I will bring silver, and for wood brass, and for stones iron. I will also make thy officers peace and thine exactors righteousness, meaning everything that we do is going to be righteous, right? From punishing you devils to killing you devils, right? To everyday things that we do, how we're going to rule, right? Everything's going to be in righteousness, man. The judgment that we pass is going to be righteous judgment. It's not going to be, right, wicked judgment like this devil does. Scriptures say that this is a place where wrong judgment proceedeth, right? It's not going to be like that anymore, man. It says, violence shall no more be heard in thy land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders. But thou shalt call thy walls salvation and thy gates praise. And this right here is an indicator that those that are over there now, right? They're not the true chosen nation, right? Because if that was so, when they were brought back into their own land, hey, well, guess what? This right here would be so. But you're not. They had the war between the Palestinians, man. That's violence in that land. It says, verse 19, the sun shall be no more thy light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto thee. But the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua shall be unto thee an everlasting light, and thy power thy glory. The sun shall no more go down, neither shall thy moon withdraw itself, which the sun and the moon is symbolic for that wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, right? It says, for Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning shall be ended. Thy people also shall be all righteous, man. I mean, all Israelites, man. So even these, they're out here, doing drugs and getting drunk and killing themselves and, now ultimately end up getting destroyed on this side, right? They're going to come back to the loins of the elect into righteousness, man, into perfection, right? It says what? It says thy people also shall be all righteous. Well, scriptures tell you in Wisdom of Solomon 1:5 that righteousness is immortality. So we're all going to live forever, man. It says, they shall inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. For I, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, will hasten it in its time. That's right. And this is what's coming for us, man. This devil is not going to rule forever, man. We're not going to be in captivity forever. We see this devil's rulership, coming to an end, right? We see him losing. Crime is increasing. The dollar is the value of the dollar is decreasing. The power that America has over the rest of the world, that's decreasing. We're at the end of this society, man. Call law Yahweh Bashem El Shah, man. You know? That's all I got, man. Lord wills, that final Lord will straight to the point. I'm going to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Baruch Kodash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders, great millstones. Until next time, say shalom.